Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So I've been gone for a couple of days. The new semester has begun and like many new semesters, it has been messy. I digress. So today I was on Twitter and I actually found out about a shooting that occurred. But the way in which I found out was strange because of the narrative. Now let me show you what I mean. So I hadn't even seen that a shooting had occurred. I don't know how I missed that. Regardless, here it says, and this is how I found out. It says, breaking, the deceased shooter at Antioch High School in Nashville is ID'd as 17-year-old Solomon Henderson. This was super quote tweeted. And a lot of the quote tweets, at least the first one I saw, related to the fact that this shooter was not white, as typically shooters are depicted, and is actually black. And I was confused at that because I'm like, okay, if we're talking about a school shooting, yes, we can talk about race and gender and all of these other things, but maybe the central thing should be to be concerned as to why yet another school shooting happened, what was going on with this particular student, like all these other things that are far more important right now than making these big analyses of race and gender, specifically also because people were saying like, oh, they're never going to let this one go, so the implication being that the media, specifically the white media, will never let go the fact that now there's a black school shooter. I don't really know how the discourse continues from then on, because the tweet basically was like, they're never going to let this one go, and so many people in the comments were saying, oh yeah, they're going to use this against us, and you know, that is possible, though the majority of school shooters, as we well know, is white, so I don't know how they are going to really use this. Regardless, that's how I found out that a shooting happened, so I wanted to talk about that. So this article is relatively long. I will link it down below, but I will be skipping some parts because some of them are not particularly relevant for us to know, like them offering counseling. Yes, that's great, but it's not necessary for us to discuss. Antioch school shooting updates. Nashville mayor emphasizes community togetherness fundraiser. The greater Nashville community is offering its support to Antioch as police and school officials continue to investigate Wednesday's deadly school shooting at Antioch High School. 2 students, including the shooter, were killed and another student was injured at 11:09 a.m. after shots rang out in the school cafeteria. Metro Nashville Police Department spokesperson Don Aaron said police received the first call to 911 2 minutes after the 17-year-old student opened fire. On Thursday morning, police and school officials said they were aware of online discussion and concern about whether additional schools could be targeted, and they're addressing the situation. The shooter killed 1 student, Aaron said. He then turned the gun on himself and died as a result of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The 3rd student suffered a grazing wound. A 4th student received a facial wound due to a fall, according to Aaron, but he was not directly hurt by the gunfire. He was also taken to Vanderbilt University Medical Center where he was treated and later released. So, on Wednesday afternoon, MNPD identified the victim who died as 16-year-old Jocelyn Correa Escalante and the shooter as 17-year-old Solomon Henderson. Police are currently in the process of identifying other students. Now, as of when I'm filming, this was posted 2 hours ago, so I think this is the most up-to-date I'm possibly going to be able to get out. That being said, there are a lot of interesting things that I've been seeing circulating about this shooting. Now, obviously, like I said, there was the beginning point of how I found out about this, that it immediately turned into a race thing of like, the white people are not going to let this go because the school shooter is black. That's how one side of the conversation was going. Another side of the conversation, though, was interesting because apparently there was an AI-powered weapons detection system that failed to alert the school. Now, I'm not really sure in detail of how this AI-powered weapons detection system works. I can imagine in very broad strokes. It says, artificial intelligence-powered weapon detection software installed on cameras at Antioch High School failed to pick up on the shooter's gun on Wednesday, according to a Metro Nashville Public Schools spokesperson. The software, known as Omnia Alert, is installed in the camera network at all MNPS campuses. I'm not really sure how exactly that works other than some kind of scan. So ironically, it said that in this instance, based on the location of the shooter and the position of the weapon, it didn't activate the AI system that I mentioned, but when the cops came in, the AI system picked up on their weapons, so that's also interesting because it seems like there's at least some kind of blind spot or some way to get around that. Regardless, it should never even have to come to the fact that we need an AI system to be able to tell if someone's coming to school armed, but that's a different story. Pages of writing from the accused shooter at Antioch High School showed a layout of the school, the weapons he wanted to use, and his thoughts about why he wanted to commit a shooting. In his writings obtained by News Channel 5 Investigates, Henderson showed a layout of the high school, photos of a handgun, a lock-picking kit, and cartridges to load the handgun. He wanted to live stream his attack in the cafeteria. The writings were connected to a social media account believed to be Henderson's. He posted the writings on the account before the shooting in the cafeteria. In one of his first sentences, Henderson wrote he was, quote-unquote, ashamed to be black. He was anti-Semitic in his writings and posted a flyer from a neo-Nazi white supremacy group that visited Nashville this summer. So, needless to say, I can understand why race is a part of the discussion considering neo-Nazi stuff and the fact that he was quote-unquote ashamed to be black. That being said, considering that it's also a school shooting, I don't think we can boil it down to just one thing, because I tend to think that basically every school shooter, and I think most people would agree, is mentally ill, and I think that takes precedent most of the time over everything else. Like, they might have all these fucked up beliefs, but I think that it all starts from being mentally ill, which then can fuel the fucked up beliefs. Does that make sense? Henderson said he was inspired by Candace Owens, a conservative black pundit who previously called Nashville home. Candace Owens influenced me above all each time she spoke, Henderson wrote. His writings showed that he'd been thinking about violence for a few months. He wrote in his final remarks on November 18th. I was so miserable, I wanted to kill myself, I just couldn't take it anymore. I am a worthless subhuman, a living, breathing disgrace. All my in real life friends outgrew me, act like they didn't fucking know me. Being me was so fucking humiliating, that's why I spend all day dissociating. So this returns back to what I was saying about mental illness, and I don't mean that in any type of shady way, but obviously something has to be profoundly wrong beyond just a fucked up belief set to actually make you commit the crime, in my opinion. Henderson's writings also showed a photo of the Covenant School shooter who died in 2023 after attacking the private Christian school. 3 children and 3 staff people died that day in addition to the shooter. He wrote he didn't intend to kill law enforcement and that he didn't consider himself the victim of bullying. However, he did write about how he felt about the school in disparaging terms about race. Antioch High School has a diverse student body with the majority of Hispanic and black students. School is daycare, he wrote. It's just impossible for you to actually think. You say things because other people have said it before, then you go and repeat it ad nauseum somewhere else. In school, we're taught to wake up early, shut up, sit for long periods of hours, do tasks you hate, then repeat. His writings included a link to instructions on how to carry out a mass killing with targets ranked as far as what is easiest. There were links to other manifestos on his document, and he praised other mass shooters. So needless to say, this is still developing. Like I said, some of this was posted less than 2 hours ago. Like I said, I was mainly confused because I hadn't seen crazy coverage. Granted, I've been online a little less these days, but prior to that tweet, I'd literally seen nothing discussing it. On the other hand, I am curious about how this is going to go because like I said, I don't think race necessarily is the only thing that should be considered. Like I said, there's mental illness, blah, blah, blah. However, it does have to be considered if he effectively was supporting neo-Nazi groups, if he was ashamed to be black, if he did use Candace Owens as a way to kind of reinforce whatever beliefs he already had. That's going to turn into a fucking shit show because some of this reminds me, and it's not the same at all, but the fact of live streaming does remind me of the case in New Zealand, I think it was. My memory's a little blurry, but I think it was in New Zealand where the shooter mentioned or shouted out PewDiePie, and it turned into this massive thing because people who were completely unrelated in the shooting, like PewDiePie, then were dragged into it. The same way that Candace Owens, I doubt she knew this boy or was related to him in any significant way, and she's being dragged into it. And it always turns into a mess because then you have people who kind of have to take responsibility for something that they didn't do. Whether you agree with their beliefs or not, irrelevant. But you can't just say, oh yeah, I was inspired by this person, and then it's completely their fault automatically. Some people obviously do incite hate, though. Let me just clarify one thing. When I say that random people are dragged into things, like PewDiePie, like Candace Owens, whoever, that's not me defending any of these people because, frankly, I don't know enough to defend or attack any of these people. That being said, I am saying it's a very dangerous precedent to just be able to shout someone out and for them to actively be blamed. Now, if that's a hateful person, then yes, we can have a discussion about what is their rhetoric doing to the youths, blah, blah, blah. But as a general notion, I could go out and do God knows what and say, oh yeah, I'm doing this for Jessica. Like, you can't go and blame Jessica for that. There's my reasons. If Jessica's a hateful person, maybe she inspired me, but again, it's a complicated discussion, and I think that's what's going to make all of this messy, because as we know, the media tends to boil things down to a very, very simplistic version, which I'm afraid is what's going to happen if anyone's even going to talk about this, because as of now, still seeing nothing. Anyway, you guys can let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you think this is going to turn into a shit show that's going to be essentially just a conversation about race like the people on Twitter were saying? Do you think it's going to be a conversation about, oh, I don't know, mental health? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and I'll catch you guys next time.